The first time Leora Everhart felt the sting of betrayal, she didn't realize it was a spark that would ignite a fire far deadlier than any blaze she'd fought. Fire had always been her life. She ran into buildings when others fled, saving people as if their survival justified the risk. But the fire she hadn't seen coming was inside her own home, inside her own family, and it left ashes where trust should have been. It began on an ordinary Tuesday. The morning air smelled of smoke and rain, a scent Leora had grown to associate with both danger and the adrenaline she craved. Her younger brother, Calder, had been a constant in her life, a mischievous shadow who made her laugh, who understood the delicate balance of pride and pain in her family. Yet that morning, he greeted her with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I need your help," Calder said. His voice carried a weight that made Leora pause. She followed him to the old warehouse district, a place she rarely went except on drills. She trusted him. She had no reason not to. Inside, she found not a crisis to manage, but a scheme he had spun with ease, hidden beneath the guise of urgency. Calder had betrayed her in a way so intimate that it felt as if he had set fire to her very soul. He'd sold her confidential firefighting strategies to a rival team for a sum that didn't just humiliate her, it threatened her career, her honor, everything she had built from sweat, smoke, and sacrifice. Shock gripped her, but anger was slower, creeping like smoke through the corridors of her mind. Leora wasn't a woman to forgive easily, and she knew revenge wasn't about fire. It was about control, patience, and tormenting the betrayer with the knowledge that every step forward, every triumph she achieved, would be a reminder of the debt she owed her in suffering. Months passed. Leora maintained the veneer of normalcy. She laughed, she trained, she led her team into infernos that would have crippled ordinary humans. Yet every night, alone in her apartment, filled with the faint smell of burnt leather from her gear, she plotted. She understood Calder's weaknesses better than anyone. His ego, his greed, his desperate need for admiration. Her first move wasn't direct. She whispered rumors to the people who mattered most to him, those whose opinion he clung to like a lifeline. She let him believe he was still untouchable, while she subtly engineered failures around him. Small, barely noticeable, enough to make him doubt his luck, his judgment, his standing. Every mishap was a spark in a room full of gasoline, and Calder didn't see it coming. Then, Leora began inserting herself into his life in ways he couldn't detect. She volunteered for joint missions with his team, intentionally leaving traces of her involvement in decisions he made, then discreetly correcting them at the last moment so the credit would subtly shift. Each time he faltered, she made sure it was quiet, nearly invisible to the world, but devastating to his ego. She crafted her revenge like a slow-burning fire, knowing that real destruction doesn't roar at first. It smolders. It waits. Calder started to feel paranoid. He second-guessed every choice, every word, every ally. Leora, always calm, always composed, watched him unravel like a rope over months of careful tugging. One evening, the real psychological assault began. Leora invited Calder to a training session, nothing out of the ordinary, just a routine exercise. But this session was a carefully constructed trap, designed to make him confront the truth without realizing it until it was too late. She allowed him to lead the drill, let him believe he was in full command, then subtly manipulated the environment. Fire simulators that flickered unpredictably, smoke that obscured vision just enough to make decisions critical. Calder panicked under conditions that were technically safe, but felt lethal. He survived, barely, but the humiliation was absolute. His confidence, once a shield, became a fragile, cracking facade. Leora didn't gloat. She knew her power lay in silence. She let him stew, letting every look in the mirror remind him of his incompetence, every whisper among colleagues echo his failures. Meanwhile, she took care to cultivate her own life outside the revenge plot, maintaining friendships, leading rescues, keeping her own conscience intact.
Revenge, she knew, isn't just punishment. It's an art form that requires patience and finesse. She wanted Calder to understand that her fire, unlike the flames she fought professionally, could not be extinguished, could not be bargained with, and could not be ignored. Then came the pivotal moment. Leora orchestrated a rescue mission where Calder's mistakes would be most visible under the scrutiny of senior officials and the media. She let him act first, deliberately withholding key information, subtly misdirecting him without overt interference. The situation escalated in a way that was manageable, but utterly exposing. Calder's decisions resulted in minor injuries for civilians. Nothing lethal, nothing criminal, but enough to brand him as reckless in public opinion.
He turned to Leora, eyes wide, desperate. "You set me up," he accused, but she only smiled, a quiet, chilling smile. "I saved the people," she said softly. "I just made sure everyone saw your choices." And it wasn't just that. Over the following weeks, she dismantled his social circle with a precision that was almost surgical. Friends who once admired him began to drift, influenced by whispers only Leora could have orchestrated. Opportunities he assumed were secure slipped away, all while she remained untouchable. She had become the unseen hand, the architect of his downfall. The psychological toll was immense. Calder, once vibrant and brash, grew hollow, anxious, constantly looking over his shoulder, never realizing that the fire that consumed him was not external, but emanated from someone he trusted most. Leora's revenge had entered its second stage. Calder's confidence was fractured, his every decision questioned by colleagues, friends, and himself. But Leora knew that the most devastating strikes were yet to come. Revenge, she understood, wasn't about immediate gratification. It was about total control. A chess game played with patience, deception, and precision. She needed him to unravel completely, to feel the weight of every misstep compounded by the knowledge that the person orchestrating it was someone he had loved, trusted, perhaps even adored. She began to manipulate his environment with subtlety that bordered on art. Emails disappeared. Key pieces of equipment went missing just when he needed them. Training schedules were shifted without explanation, leaving him unprepared at critical moments. Each small failure seemed random to everyone else, but Leora watched with satisfaction as he slowly descended into paranoia. He started doubting his own instincts, constantly second-guessing every action, unable to trust anyone, not even himself. At night, she would sit in her apartment reviewing his schedule, identifying patterns, predicting his responses. She knew the way he reacted to stress, the way he flinched under criticism, the way his ego both protected him and left him vulnerable. Every whisper she spread, every subtle misdirection was calculated to exploit his flaws. She never interfered directly unless necessary. The brilliance lay in letting him believe his failures were his own doing. Leora introduced another variable, her own subtle presence in his life. She volunteered for joint missions under the guise of camaraderie, always leaving traces of guidance and correction, enough to let him believe he had succeeded by his own merit, while in truth she was manipulating outcomes behind the scenes. Each time he stumbled, she was there, calm, composed, a shadowed figure who seemed to anticipate his every move. He began to crave her approval, yet, unknowingly, it only deepened his dependence and the severity of his eventual downfall. Then came the psychological torment that would push him to the edge. Leora orchestrated a scenario during a high-risk fire rescue that mirrored the earliest moment of his humiliation. She ensured that Calder would be the first responder on scene, giving him the illusion of control. But every path he took, every choice he made, subtly guided by Leora's careful planning, led him to mistakes that were immediately visible, easily documented, and professionally embarrassing. Civilians were safe, yet his reputation suffered blows that were impossible to ignore. Calder confronted her afterward, anger and desperation boiling over. "Why are you doing this?" he demanded, voice trembling. "What have I done to deserve this?" Leora's reply was chillingly calm. "You betrayed me," she said. "You underestimated the fire you ignited in me, and now you're living in it." But she didn't stop there. She began to manipulate his personal life with the same precision she had applied to his professional failures. Friends drifted away, colleagues no longer offered support, and even his family subtly questioned his judgment. Leora planted small but convincing doubts that eroded his relationships. Each loss, each betrayal he believed to be coincidence, deepened his psychological torment. The ultimate phase of her plan required him to confront a literal inferno while stripped of the confidence he once relied upon. She orchestrated a complex, multi-team fire rescue in a decayed warehouse, engineering conditions where Calder's mistakes would be unavoidable, yet survivable. Leora made sure she was present, calm and capable, ensuring the success of the mission while he stumbled, floundered, and panicked. When it was over, he collapsed in exhaustion, humiliation burning in his chest. Leora approached, silent, watching him crumble. She offered no comfort, only the quiet weight of inevitability. "You see," she whispered, "this is the fire that burns from within."
Over the following weeks, Calder's paranoia intensified. He began imagining plots against him everywhere, even where none existed. Leora's subtle whispers had planted seeds that grew into forests of doubt. Each minor inconvenience felt catastrophic to him. He no longer trusted his instincts or his team, and his professional competence eroded day by day. Leora, meanwhile, maintained her outward appearance of normalcy, saving lives, training recruits, leading missions, but internally, she basked in the slow, meticulous collapse of someone who had once been untouchable. She was no longer just a firefighter, she was a master of psychological warfare, a conductor orchestrating a symphony of destruction with nothing more than patience, cunning, and precision. She introduced one final element of betrayal, a mirror to his original sin. During a high-stakes operation, she subtly manipulated the mission parameters so that Calder's errors would not just be noticed, but permanently recorded. Media coverage, official reports, colleagues' testimonials. The humiliation was permanent, an indelible mark on his career. Calder realized, too late, that every misstep had been orchestrated by someone he had trusted implicitly. The realization crushed him. Not just the professional ruin, but the personal one. The knowledge that his own sister, the person he believed he could trust above all, had masterminded his downfall with precision and patience unmatched by any inferno he had ever faced. The fire she had kindled in his mind was unstoppable, consuming not just his confidence, but the foundation of his identity. Leora watched him from a distance, her own life untouched, yet marked by the quiet satisfaction that comes from executing a plan of perfect, slow-burning revenge. She had paid her own dues, hours of patience, moments of restraint, the careful cultivation of appearances, but the cost was worth it. The psychological inferno she had unleashed would linger longer than any physical blaze, a testament to the power of deliberate, meticulous vengeance. The final act of Leora's plan unfolded during the dead of winter, when the icy streets mirrored the chill she had cultivated in Calder's life. Months of meticulous manipulation had left him isolated, paranoid, and brittle, his confidence shattered like a frozen window. But Leora wanted one last crescendo, a moment that would forever etch the memory of betrayal into his psyche. A massive industrial fire erupted on the outskirts of the city, a situation too dangerous for hesitation.
Calder, despite his internal collapse, was dispatched as the lead responder. Leora positioned herself strategically, ensuring she had full oversight without direct interference. She had spent weeks studying the building plans, every exit, every risk, ensuring the chaos would maximize the psychological toll while keeping everyone physically safe. As they arrived, Calder's hands shook. He barked orders, but they came out clipped and uncertain, betraying the cracks that had been widening for months. The fire roared like a beast, flames licking the sky, reflecting in his wide, panicked eyes. Leora, calm and commanding, moved with precision, saving trapped workers, guiding teams, and all the while watching Calder falter at each decision point. Each wrong move he made, each hesitation, sent shockwaves through his confidence. Then came the pivotal moment. A section of the building threatened to collapse. Calder had to choose between two rescue paths, one for maximum impact, one safer but less visible. Leora had subtly steered him to the wrong choice weeks before, planting a suggestion so ingrained that he believed it was his own decision. The path he chose led to a minor but highly visible failure. A team member was trapped temporarily, rescued thanks only to Leora's intervention. The humiliation was instantaneous and broadcast. Cameras, colleagues, and social media would all record it. Calder's colleagues were stunned. How could someone so experienced make such an elementary error? And yet Leora remained composed, appearing as the savior, the hero, who quietly corrected what he had broken. The irony was exquisite. Afterward, Calder retreated to the locker room, stripped of his dignity. Leora approached, silent, yet her presence calm and piercing. "It's over," she said softly. But the words were a lie. This was the apex of his torment. She handed him a small package. Inside, documents detailing every manipulated failure, every subtle deception she had orchestrated. The betrayal was laid bare, undeniable. He realized the extent of her manipulation, that every misstep, every humiliation, every fracture of his identity had been meticulously planned by the very person he had loved and trusted. The realization broke him. Calder's mind swirled with disbelief, anger, and shame. Leora observed the collapse, the way his shoulders slumped, the vacant stare that betrayed the inner storm consuming him. She had not only destroyed his professional confidence, but also stripped him of his emotional armor, leaving him raw and exposed. Months later, Calder attempted to rebuild. He was competent, still a skilled firefighter, but the shadow of betrayal haunted every decision. Colleagues viewed him with quiet skepticism, subtle reminders of Leora's perfection in contrast to his faltering. The psychological burn of her revenge lingered longer than any physical flame could have. Leora, meanwhile, continued her career untouched by scandal, her reputation intact, even revered. Yet she did not celebrate loudly. Her satisfaction was quiet, internal. The satisfaction of someone who had orchestrated perfect revenge with patience and precision. The cost to her had been patience, restraint, and careful planning, but she had achieved a masterpiece of psychological vengeance. Calder's downfall was complete, devastating, not through violence, but through control, manipulation, and the slow, excruciating realization of betrayal. And in the quiet moments, Leora remembered the pain he had caused her, the betrayal that had sparked this inferno. She smiled faintly, knowing that she had balanced the scales not with fire, but with the slow, inexorable burn of cunning and intellect. The fire may have been extinguished, but the scar it left, the psychological imprint of betrayal and revenge, would endure indefinitely. And for Leora, that was the ultimate victory.